Hey guys, Emily again here with Sweet Skills and another episode of Tips and Tweaks. In this week's episode, we're going to look at what to check over on your bike before you go for a ride. Here we go. Okay, so you want to go for a ride. Maybe it's been a while since you've ridden your bike, or even if it was just yesterday. Always good to check over a few things before you head out on the trail. So let's start with a first obvious one, which would be our tires and our tire pressure. So lots of people just do a nice little squeeze, the pinch test, and that'll tell you, if you initially have zero pressure or if they're quite solid. But a better way to do that, because our fingers can only tell us so much, is to use a digital gauge or the gauge on your pump. Sometimes the gauges on the pump aren't actually that accurate, so really awesome to get a digital gauge. They're pretty cheap. You can get them from your local bike shop, and just turn them on, push of a button, and we will stick these on our valve, and it'll give us an accurate reading of what our tire pressure is. So mine front one's 19.5. I'll do the same thing with the back. I might put a little bit more in my front tire, and then in the back I'll check it as well. We'll do another episode about tires and tire pressures. Anyways, so we do have air in our tires, so that's great. Another thing we can check while we're looking at our tires is that we close up our little stems after we're done. Also make sure that our tire axles are in tightly. So my front tire doesn't have a quick release, but I can check it kind of just by holding my tire and seeing if there's any play or movement in there. Sometimes a little bit of up and down, you can hear if it rattles, but usually if you go back and forth, you'll be able to feel if it's tight, your axle's tight. If you have a quick release like I do on the rear tire here, you can just make sure that that's nice and tight on there by pushing down on it. All right, another thing that we can check on our tires while we're looking is just to give our spokes a quick once over. And that's as easy as just running your hand around, feeling for any really loose spokes. So we'll do that front and back, making sure that all of those are relatively tight. All right, so the last thing on our tires, we want to just give them a quick once over now. Make sure you're not seeing any obvious gashes in your tire and the sidewall of your tire, making sure that the rubber knobs are looking in good working order. If things look worn, it might be an indication that you're going to need a new tire quite soon, or if you see a big gash somewhere, another indication you might want to swap that out so you don't get a flat. So just you can spin your tire around, give it a quick look, and front and back, do that, and that's it for the tires. All right, we're going on to brakes now. Super important. Want to make sure that both of our brakes work, front and rear, depending on how you're set up. And we can do that just quickly by picking up your front of your bike, giving your tire spin, making sure you don't hear any rotor rub. You can hear that quite easily. So mine's not rubbing, spinning freely, that's important. We'll give it another spin, and I'll just hit my brake, maybe gradually there, making sure that my front brake does in fact work. Another thing while I'm up here, I can just give my brake pads a quick check. You look down in your caliper here and make sure that there's still pad left in there and you're not getting that metal on metal noise when you hit your brake. So that's important. We'll do that front and rear, same thing, picking up the back, spinning, making sure that goes freely, making sure your brake works, no rubbing. Awesome. We're going to check and make sure our headset's tight. This usually isn't a problem, but every once in a while things can loosen off. So it's good just to check over your bike, make sure there's no rattles in it. So we can do a quick headset check by turning your front tire sideways, putting on a little bit of front brake, and then we're just going to wiggle back and forth. And I've got my finger right up here kind of on my headset area. Now if you feel any play, kind of any like knocking, or you hear anything weird, that would maybe indicate that your headset is loose and you'd need to tighten it. So that's right up here. To do that, you need to loosen your bolts here that are holding your bars onto your headset. So you loosen those ones first, your stem bolts, and then you can tighten down your headset, which is at the top of your bike here. Remembering to re-tighten those bolts, making sure that your bars are in fact centered and in the right position before you tighten them back up. So another way, just giving a little up and down like this, listening for any knocking, kind of good also just to help see if there's any rattling or any other bolts that you might need to check. You can do the same for the back of your bike, a little up and down, just listening for any rattling or any loose bits. All right, so headset, loose bits. Let's look now at our shifting. So quick once over for our drivetrain down here, just making sure that it looks like all of our gears, all the cogs are in good order, and we can click through some of our gears. Moves quite freely. Really nice if you have a stand, or if you're outside, you can just take it for a quick spin in your driveway, making sure that you go through all of your gears there, nice and easily. Way easier to fix this here at home in your garage than on the trail. So I'm going through all my gears quite easily here. Nice. My front ring looks good. Perfect. So that's nice. What we're also going to check, make sure we've got our chain lubed. So I got some lube here, a rag. I'm just going to give my chain a quick wipe down first. Clean off any of that old gunk before I put some new, fresh lube on my drivetrain. So not too much, lubing it up maybe once around, easy, and then we'll wipe off that excess. Once. Perfect. Last, we want to check our suspension. It's a moving part. It helps us have a nice smooth ride on the trail, and we just want to make sure that it's in good working order. So you can just quickly do that by pushing down on your fork, making sure that it's going up and down quite freely. We did another tips and tweaks episode about setting up our sag in our suspension, so watch for that one. If it feels really stiff, you can adjust that using your air, or making sure that if you have a lockout knob indicated on your fork, that you have that fully open so that your suspension can actually work. And that's usually a blue knob, quite well marked. So if you have one, you'll probably know. Just look on the tops of your forks. That's where most of those knobs will be found. So making sure that that works, pushing down. You can also check while you're here, if you see oil or anything coming out around the seals of your fork, that's an indication that maybe there's something else going on in there that you'd need to go get it looked at by your local shop, maybe have a service. If you've never had your fork serviced, also something you might want to talk to your shop about. So yeah, making sure that that fork works quite well. Same with your rear suspension. So a lot of us have lockout knobs on our rear suspension, making sure your knob is in the open position. On these RockShox shocks, super easy. There's a little lock icon and an unlocked icon. So right now I have mine in the unlocked icon point, so that when I push down, it actually squishes down. You can test it out, pushing it in the other direction. A lot harder for me to push down on it. So leave that open, that seems to work. Again, we can set up our sag on our shock in a different episode with adding some air, taking some air pressure out. All right, so suspension works, drivetrain works, brakes work, tires are good to go, no rattles, headsets and things are tight. Looks like I'm ready to hit the trail and off for a good ride. Thanks for watching another Tips and Tweaks with me from Sweet Skills. Bye.